Welcome to this explainer. Today we are jumping right into a true story that honestly sounds totally impossible. We're looking at the life of Dashrath Manjhi. This is a guy who waged a literal one-man war against nature itself. It's not just a story about, moving some dirt around. It's an absolutely mind-blowing testament to the sheer force of human resolve. Let's get right into it.
So, the setup is this. One man, one colossal mountain. It's the kind of unimaginable feat driven entirely by relentless human determination and absolutely nothing else. It almost sounds like a myth, right? Like some ancient legend passed down for centuries. But no, this actually happened right here in our modern world.
And guys, this didn't just happen overnight. 22 years. For 22 agonizing years, he kept striking solid rock. Just picture that for a second. Day after day, month after month, year after year. The sheer physical and mental endurance it takes to wake up every single morning for over 2 decades with just one monumental task in mind. It's literally staggering.
To really wrap our heads around the magnitude of this, we kind of have to forget everything we associate with modern construction. There was zero heavy machinery helping him clear the stone, no dynamite to blast through the rock, absolutely no bulldozers to push the debris out of the way. None of that.
Plus, he wasn't an engineer. He didn't have architects or blueprints or, fancy structural plans telling him where to hit. There were no experts surveying the land, figuring out where the rock was weakest or what angle would be safest. It was all just him.
And what's really wild to me is the sheer scale of his isolation. He had absolutely zero help. He worked entirely alone. His entire toolkit, a simple hammer, and a chisel. I mean, just try to visualize one single person standing in front of a massive mountain with basic hand tools, deciding, yep, I'm going to carve a path straight through this whole shebang myself.
All right, Section 1, a deadly barrier. The isolated village of Gilor.
Okay, so to understand why he'd even do this, we have to look at his home, a small village in Bihar, India. Life here was incredibly tough, mostly because daily survival was literally blocked by this massive geological wall. The mountain stood right between the villagers and their most basic needs. If they needed to reach a hospital, a school, or even just a market, they couldn't just pop over. They had to endure a brutal 70-kilometer detour entirely around the mountain. If they could just go straight through it, the trip would be a mere few kilometers. So what should have been a quick trip was an exhausting, life-threatening struggle. People suffered, and tragic things happened, just because help came way too late.
Which brings us to the big question. Why fight a mountain? I mean, Dashrath Manjhi was a poor laborer. He had no wealth, no resources, no power. He literally had nothing but his family. So what on earth drives a guy like that to take on such an absurd, unilateral challenge against a geographical giant?
Section 2. The Catalyst for Change. A tragedy that shifted everything.
The answer is a devastating, inciting incident that changed his life and the landscape forever. His wife meant absolutely everything to him, and one day, the unthinkable happened. She suffered a very serious injury. In a desperate scramble to get her to a hospital, they were forced to face that mountain. But because there was no shortcut, that 70-kilometer bypass created a fatal delay. Only distance and time stood between her and survival, but the medical help arrived too late. She passed away, simply because they couldn't cross the mountain in time.
In that moment of just crushing, unimaginable grief, something inside him broke. But actually, scratch that. It didn't break into weakness. It forged into the sheer, unbreakable resolve. He stopped seeing the mountain as just a piece of scenery. It became the very reason he lost her. It became his literal, mortal enemy. And right then, he made a decision that no one around him could possibly wrap their minds around.
Section 3. 22 years of solitude. A hammer, a chisel, and an iron will. Literally the very next day, armed with just that hammer and chisel, Dashrath set out to break the mountain himself. Day 1, his village thought he had completely lost his mind. They laughed at him, they mocked him, and eventually they just ignored him. But he didn't stop. Moving toward the midpoint, we see years of agonizing physical toll. His hands bled, his body broke down, and every tiny step forward took weeks of immense effort. But, slowly, cracks actually started forming in the rock. And then, miraculously, by year 22, the path finally opens.
His progress was painfully slow, obviously. First, he's just carving into solid rock, one brutal strike at a time, echoing through the valley day and night. Then, over time, those thousands of strikes formed a narrow crack in the stone. And finally, he expanded that crack into an actual visible road. He wasn't just doing manual labor here. He was fighting back against the very thing that took his wife. And eventually, the solid rock just gave up. What seemed completely impossible became real.
Section 4. A legacy of will. Reshaping nature with purpose.
After more than 2 decades of silent, backbreaking labor with no applause, no fame, Dashrath Manjhi fundamentally changed reality for his entire region. He successfully reduced that fatal 70-kilometer journey down to just a few kilometers. He provided vital, life-saving access to hospitals, schools, and markets for thousands of people. And because of this, he has been forever immortalized as the mountain man of India. He lacked wealth and power, sure, but his sheer love and determination carved out a shortcut that is literally saving lives today. It proves, without a doubt, that human purpose is stronger than nature.
A true story of love, loss, and unbreakable will. This beautiful quote really hits the nail on the head as to why we're unpacking this explainer today. It's so vital to remember we're not just talking about moving Earth against the odds here. It's a profound testament to how unimaginable grief can be channeled into an impossible physical feat. It shows us that one human being really can reshape nature itself, not just with physical strength, but with a deeply rooted purpose.
Before we wrap up, I want you to take a second and really reflect on this story. Ask yourself this final, crucial question. What is the mountain in your life? And are you willing to start chipping away at it today? Because while most of us aren't facing actual geological mountains blocking our paths, we all have these seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Dashrath Manjhi showed us that with relentless purpose, day by day, strike by strike, even the hardest stone will eventually crack. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.